Hello everybody, Maven here, and if you're curious if YouTubers such as myself actually use the builds we make videos on or if it's all just for show, I'm gonna tell you right now, absolutely yes. I have a lot of the builds I did videos on here on my loadouts hotbar on all three characters for regular usage. But the build that I have been maining above all else for the past few months has been this build here. This is my Cyrtarachne's Facade build that I did do a video on, and I've just been absolutely addicted to Strand Hunter and PvE, and also PvP, just for the mobility of it. Just having double grapple charges and pairing that with an eager edge sword, you can get from place to place very conveniently, quickly, and easily. So I've been using that to quickly just grind out whatever PvE activities. But for today's video, I think I have found a massive improvement upon this build, and I'm very excited to share it with you. So what we're going to do is simply take off the Cyrtarachne's Facade and slap on the Assassin's Cowl. So how long has Strand been out now? Like 7 months? I can't believe it's taken me this long to finally try Assassin's Cowl on Strand, and there's an interaction on it that I didn't know about until I tried it out, and it blew my mind. The whole point of this build is to have like absolute invis uptime, but on Strand, not Void. So when I do tougher content in PvE, I typically use Void Hunter because going invis is broken and you don't die. But the downside of going Void is you lose out on the mobility of going Strand because you don't have grapple, obviously. But this build is meant to combine the best of both worlds together into one, and I am loving it. So let's break down the build. Don't forget to drop a like, and I hope you enjoy. So the Assassin's Cowl says that finishers and powered melee final blows will pretty much full heal you and make you invis. And like I said, it is an invis spam build. We have not one, not two, but 5 ways to go invis with this build. And we could have 6 if we wanted to. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to the invis, but we'll do that in a bit because first we need to talk about grapple. Because the cool interaction that I found out about Assassin's Cowl is that it works with grapple. And you can see in the background gameplay that even though the grapple uses your grenade charge and not your melee charge, it's making us invis, giving us a full heal. It's amazing for survival. And you can also see that we're able to pretty much spam it back to back nearly infinitely, and that's because we have 3 different kickstarts for it. And no, that doesn't mean we have triple grenade kickstart equipped. It means we have 2 other effects that sort of act as a pseudo kickstart. The other one is going to be impact induction. It says that causing damage with the melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown, and we learned a second ago that Assassin's Cowl sees our grapple melee as a charged melee ability, and so does impact induction. So take a look at this clip here. I'll slow it down for you so you can see the energy pop up from grenade kickstart, and then when I hit an enemy with my grapple melee, you can see impact induction give us some grenade energy as well. So it's pretty much just another grenade kickstart. It's kind of busted. And our last pseudo kickstart effect is a combination of 2 mods. There's heavy handed, which gives us orbs on powered melee final blows like our threaded spike or our grapple melee. And when we make that orb on the spot where we grapple melee the enemy, we are picking up that orb immediately and proccing Innervation to get some grenade energy as well. So once again, in slow-mo, there's the energy from grenade kickstart, there's the energy from impact induction, and there is the energy from Innervation. All together, it's kind of like having triple kickstarts. So this is how we're able to pretty much spam grapples and healing and invis with Assassin's Cowl. It's pretty nasty. And every time we proc that Innervation, we're also proccing recuperation to get some health back for good measure. Even though Assassin's Cowl is already healing us, we just get double the healing just to make sure that we don't die. But just in case full healing and going invis wasn't enough survivability for you, we are also proccing Thread of Warding to give us a woven mail when we grab that orb, which is like a 60-something% resist. So yeah, we're living pretty comfortably. Now, before we talk about our invis shenanigans, we got a couple more grenade things to talk about. So the iterative loop is going to be our main grenade regen weapon. I was trying out a 1-2 punch shotgun for the grapple, which was a decent option, but it felt a little bit inconsistent. I definitely prefer the iterative loop to get back my grapples because not only is it a fusion rifle archetype, but also it is enhanced. So with Demolitionist, we're getting 22% of our grenade energy back on final blows, as opposed to most other weapon types of Demolitionist only giving you 10% grenade energy. So iterative loop is incredible for grenade energy. And our final method of getting grenade energy is going to be via Thread of Generation. Dealing damage generates grenade energy, and it's not based off of the amount of damage you deal, it's based off the amount of individual damage numbers. So it's great if we can unravel targets to get those little unravel seekers that fly around the room, damage enemies, and cause more damage numbers. So it's very, very convenient that grapple melee unravels targets. So I'll show you how useful that is against Cowl here. We can just grapple punch him and then go to town with our fusion rifle on his face. And you can see that we are generating a ton of grenade energy from Thread of Generation. And that about does it for our talk about grapple. Now let's talk about our methods of going invis. I did mention earlier we got 5 ways of going invis, and we could have 6 if we wanted to. So obviously you already know that our grapple and threaded spike will make us invis because of the Assassin's Cowl, but also finishers will make you invis. When you're playing on Void, that costs you an entire fragment to do. But on Strand, it's just built into our exotic along with the free full heal. That is incredible tech to have for tougher content with champions. Now, our 4th method of going invis is going to be with the Rat King sidearm, which makes you invis after reloading after a kill. Now, this is my go-to weapon with this build for content without champions. Whenever I can run it, I will run it. And I did try a bunch of other weapons with this build, like Quicksilver Storm, Traveler's Chosen, Rufus, Monte Carlo. No matter what I tried, it just felt like the Rat King was putting in more work and fit in better with the theme of the build of staying invis at all times. But to be fair, all of these are pretty good options, and there are more good options. And if you are using a Strand weapon, it is good to use Thread of Propagation. Powered melee final blows give you unraveling rounds to your Strand weapons, which is extremely easy to proc with your grapple melee. So that's pretty good there, but instead I'm using Thread of Fury since I'm not using a Strand weapon. Damaging targets with a tangle grants melee energy. Now, I'm using that despite already having Gambler's Dodge because it's just a really good fragment, and you would be surprised at how often this comes into play. But anyways, one of the sucky things about Rat King is that it has a pretty slow reload speed typically, but we're gonna remedy that because we are using Thread of Ascent. Activating your grenade ability reloads your equipped weapon and grants a bonus airborne effectiveness and handling for a short duration. So we can just grapple the floor in front of us and just auto reload our weapon. But something about Thread of Ascent that the perk does not tell you is that it also pretty much maxes out your reload speed. And I'll demonstrate in this clip here. Grapple the floor and we can just suddenly reload our Rat King really fast as if it had 100 reload speed. And after that season 22 buff that gave sidearms a 20% damage buff in PvE, the Rat King actually slaps, and it's very nice to go invis after each kill. It's a pretty solid weapon and I'd recommend giving it a try. And for our 5th and final way of going invis, we got the Aspect Threaded Spectre. Now this doesn't technically make you invis, but it technically makes you invis. You put up that clone, enemies prioritize shooting at that clone instead of you, thus making it feel as though you are invisible. And I haven't actually tried Threaded Spectre until I made this build, and I was surprised at how good and useful it was. So those are the 5 methods we are running on this build to go invis, but like I said, there is a pseudo sort of 6th way to go invis, which is just running a blinding GL. You know, they're blind, they can't see you, they're not shooting at you. It's kind of like you're pretending that you're invis, but I felt like that was overkill. Just imagine a loadout in which you have a blinding GL with Rat King with grapple melees that full heal you and make you invis. That's just overkill on the survival department. I don't think you need to go that far. So I prefer to go with the iterative loop just to get my grapples back. But you know, it's not a bad thing to run because what I like to do against fatter enemies is I like to put a grapple point above them and just repeatedly grapple onto that grapple point and spam my grapple melee because that is a great damage dealer. But if you're blinding them, it'll make it so they can't really stomp you away or fight back. So it's not a bad thing to run actually. And remember that the Thread of Ascent is also auto-loading your grenade launcher, and you don't really take too much self-damage from disorienting grenades, so it's good in that sense as well. Now for my DPS option, I got the Cataphract with bait and switch, although if you needed some range, because this is a pretty short range loadout, you can run something like a linear fusion, like the Cataclysmic or a machine gun. For quick content, personally, I prefer just running around with an eager edge sword. That's kind of my thing. But also another thing you can do if you were running a GL is you can run a sniper in your energy slot if you wanted to, if you needed some range really bad. But this build can get around extremely well, so I don't really think you need to worry too much about range. But of course, if you're doing tougher content and needed to deal with barrier champions, just slap on Wish Ender and there's your ranged option right there. Now for the rest of the mods I didn't explain yet, we got Dynamo since we're putting our Threaded Spectre right in the face of enemies, so that works out pretty well. Obviously, since it's a melee build, we got a hands-on, and then I had a little extra energy siren, powerful friends to help out the teammates, but you can also run Harmonic Siphon if you did opt to go with a Strand primary. And then for the chest piece, I got triple resist mods, melee resist, because, you know, melee build, you're always going to be close, and just whatever resist you need for the activity. Although something that I would also recommend trying out for easier content is running a copy of Charged Up, so you can have more armor charge to expend on grenade kickstart, which I will generally do, but if, you know, it's tougher content, I'll put on resist instead. And then on the boots, I got stacks on stacks to get armor charge quicker, and then on the class item, I got bomber to get some grenade energy when I dodge, and then I got distribution, pairs well with dynamo. We dodge on your targets, we get some ability cooldowns for all of our abilities. Although I could see a world in which you run powerful attraction instead of this, but it's really up to you. And then I have Reaper to get a orb on my next weapon kill after dodging. Now for the stats setup, I always run a minimum of 3 intellect and a minimum of 100 resilience. And then after that, invest into discipline followed by mobility. Don't really have to worry about strength and recovery. So that's about it for the build. Now for the gameplay loop, I would say just grapple spam. That's all it really is when I use this build, just grapple spam and use your iterative loop to get your grenades back and just repeat that. And I may have shown a couple solo legend lost sectors in this video, but it's just effortless and easy to use in legend content. And all the way up to master content, your grapple melee will one-shot trash mobs. So you get that full heal and make you invis. That's what makes it so easy. However, in legend and up, your threaded spike melee ability will not one-shot trash mobs, but it will put them in finisher. So you can full heal and go invis that way instead. So it's still good. Now, I'll show a clip right now, but I did do solo master Scarlet Keep with this build, and I'm not really going to show highlights from it because it was just a lot of boring wish under peak shotting, but just know that the build is viable in master, and I did do the solo master Scarlet Keep with it. But I would say after using this build in quote-unquote tougher content, for the tough content, I would probably stick with the Cyrtarachne's Facade over the Assassin's Cowl because you have a much easier time upkeeping Woven Mail, which is very important for the tougher content. But when it comes to any other content, legend or below, dungeons, raids, whatever it may be that I'm grinding in PvE, my main build is going to be the Assassin's Cowl from now on. It's just so incredibly useful. And any kind of content where like your threaded spike can put in the work and your grapple melees can put in the work. In those situations, the Assassin's Cowl is going to be 100% better than the Cyrtarachne's Facade. So there you have it, my new main PvE build that I'll probably be using for the rest of the year. So anyways, I'll leave a dim loadout link to this build down below in the description and the pinned comment if you would like to give it a try. And in that dim loadout link, I'll have the easier version of the build with an eager edge sword and charged up on the chest. But if you're doing tougher content, you can just make out the changes accordingly. And like I always say, if you got buddies who may or may not be hunter mains, I'd appreciate if you share the video with them. I'm sure they would find it enjoyable. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to hit the like button and drop a comment, because interacting with the video in different types of ways like that really helps out the algorithm. So I'd greatly appreciate if you did one of those things, or maybe both. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing. Would love to have you here. And with that, I will catch you in the next video. See you later.